Welcome to the Crazy Alchemist podcast, where alchemy, occultism, and strange history come alive.
In April 2026, neuroscientist Christof Koch stood before an audience in Porto, Portugal, and said something that would have ended a career 20 years ago. The brain, he told the symposium, may not create consciousness at all. Koch is not a mystic. He spent decades at Caltech working alongside Francis Crick, the co-discoverer of the structure of DNA. He served as president and chief scientist of the Allen Institute for Brain Science. He has published hundreds of peer-reviewed papers on visual awareness. So when he says the materialist framework is failing, the field pays attention. His argument rests on three observations. Neuroscience has mapped the brain in extraordinary detail and still cannot explain why any of it feels like anything. Modern physics itself questions what counts as real, and a growing body of clinical evidence, from dying brains to deathbed lucidity, refuses to fit the standard model. The philosopher David Chalmers gave the core question a name in 1995, the hard problem. The easy problems of consciousness involve mapping how the brain processes stimuli and integrates information. Those are engineering questions. The hard problem is different. It asks why any of this produces subjective experience. You can describe every molecule involved when a person sees red. You can trace the signal from retina to visual cortex. None of that explains why redness feels like something from the inside. Koch and Chalmers made a bet in 1998. Koch wagered that science would identify the neural correlates of consciousness within 25 years. In 2023, at a meeting of the Association for the Scientific Study of Consciousness in New York, Koch conceded. He handed Chalmers a bottle of 1978 Madeira on stage. The correlates had not been found. What had been found was a $20 million experiment that raised more questions than it answered. In 2019, the Templeton World Charity Foundation committed $20 million to the largest adversarial collaboration in consciousness research. The project pitted two leading theories against each other: integrated information theory, developed by Giulio Tononi at the University of Wisconsin, and global neuronal workspace theory, developed by Stanislas Dehaene at the Collège de France. The theories make different predictions. Global workspace theory says consciousness arises when information is broadcast through a workspace centered on the prefrontal cortex. Integrated information theory says consciousness is identical to integrated information, and its physical basis lies in the posterior cortex, the back of the brain. 14 laboratories ran coordinated experiments. The results, published in Nature in 2025, challenged key claims of both theories. But on one critical point, integrated information theory came out ahead. The neural signature of consciousness appeared in the posterior cortex, not the prefrontal regions. The prefrontal cortex, long assumed to be the seat of conscious thought, appeared to be involved in reporting on experience rather than generating it. Neither theory was confirmed, neither was destroyed. The question remains open. In May 2023, neuroscientist Jimo Borjigin at the University of Michigan published a study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that complicated things further. Her team monitored 4 comatose patients after ventilator support was withdrawn. 2 of the 4 showed something no one expected. In the seconds after their hearts stopped, gamma wave activity in their brains surged to levels up to 390 times the baseline. Gamma waves are the fastest brain oscillations. They are associated with conscious perception and memory binding. The surges were concentrated in the posterior cortical hot zone, the same region that integrated information theory identifies as the seat of consciousness. The dying brains were more active than waking brains. Borjigin had seen the same pattern in rats in 2013. The 2023 study was the first to document it in humans. Both patients who showed the surges had histories of seizures, which may have primed their brains for the response. The study has an obvious limitation. The patients did not survive to report what they experienced. We have the electrical signature of something, but we do not know what it felt like from the inside. Sam Parnia, a critical care physician at NYU Langone Health, has spent 2 decades trying to close that gap. His AWARE-2 study, published in October 2023, is the largest prospective investigation of consciousness during cardiac arrest ever conducted. 567 patients received CPR across 25 hospitals in the United States and United Kingdom, enrolled between May 2017 and March 2020. Fewer than 10% survived to hospital discharge. Of those who survived and were interviewed, roughly 40% recalled some degree of consciousness during the period when their hearts had stopped. 85 patients were monitored with EEG during resuscitation. The data showed brain activity returning to normal or near normal patterns at intervals during CPR. In some cases, this continued up to an hour after cardiac arrest. Standard medical teaching holds that the brain suffers irreversible damage after roughly 10 minutes without oxygen. The data contradicted this. What the survivors described was consistent across cases and distinct from hallucination. They reported perceiving separation from the body and observing resuscitation efforts without pain or distress. Many described a structured review of their lives from childhood to the moment of death. These experiences did not correlate with medication, duration of arrest, or prior religious beliefs. An earlier study by cardiologist Pim van Lommel, published in The Lancet in 2001, had found similar results. Of 344 cardiac arrest survivors across 10 Dutch hospitals, 18% reported near-death experiences and 12% described core features, the tunnel and the light, followed by a structured life review. Neither study proves that consciousness survives death. Both document that something measurable happens in brains that should be incapable of generating experience. Terminal lucidity is the least understood piece of this puzzle. Patients with severe dementia, people who have not recognized their families or spoken a coherent sentence in months or years, suddenly wake up. They know where they are, they know who is beside them, they talk, say goodbye. Within 48 hours, almost all of them are dead. Psychologist Alexander Bathiani collected hundreds of documented cases for his 2023 book, Threshold. The phenomenon had been observed by hospice workers for as long as the profession has existed. It acquired a formal name only around 2009. If consciousness is produced by neural tissue and that tissue has been devastated by years of progressive disease, the sudden return of full cognitive function should not happen. Steven Pinker has dismissed the reports as family projection. Neurosurgeon Michael Egnor counters that this is like pouring acid on a hard drive and expecting it to boot up one last time. No one disputes that it happens. The question is what it means. Koch's answer is integrated information theory. Developed by Giulio Tononi beginning in 2004, the theory starts not from the brain, but from consciousness itself. It asks what properties experience has. Experience is unified. You cannot split your visual field in half. It is specific, this experience and no other. Tononi argues that any physical system whose internal causal structure matches these properties, measured by a quantity called phi, is conscious. The implications are radical. If the theory is correct, consciousness is not something brains do, it is something certain physical structures are. A bacterium might possess a trace of it. A digital computer, no matter how powerful, might possess none, because its architecture separates hardware from software in a way that eliminates the integrated causal structure that phi requires. Koch puts it bluntly, you can simulate a rainstorm, but it never gets wet inside the computer. Simulating consciousness does not produce consciousness any more than simulating gravity bends space. Neuroscientist Anil Seth at the University of Sussex adds his own reservation about artificial consciousness. Brains differ from computers in kind, he argues, because biological systems continuously reproduce and maintain their own components. The wetware matters. Critics are not silent. A group of scholars called Integrated Information Theory unfalsifiable pseudoscience in a 2023 open letter. A 2025 Nature Neuroscience commentary repeated the charge. If phi cannot be measured in any system larger than a handful of neurons, the theory's predictions remain untestable. Koch knows all of this. His argument is not that materialism has been disproven. His argument is that it has been assumed for so long that the field has stopped asking whether it is adequate. The hard problem has not moved 1 millimeter closer to a solution within the materialist framework after 3 decades. Perhaps the framework is the problem. Here is the materialist reading. Consciousness is a biological process we do not yet understand. The anomalies are edge cases. The hard problem is hard, but hard is not the same as impossible. We need more data. Here is the alternative. The hard problem is not a gap in our knowledge. It is a signal that the framework is wrong. Consciousness is not produced by matter. It is a feature of reality that certain physical structures, brains among them, are particularly good at expressing. Koch has placed himself in the second camp. Tononi is already there. Chalmers has been there since 1995. A growing number of working neuroscientists are following. Neither camp has proven its case. The materialists cannot explain why anything feels like something. Those who support integrated information theory cannot measure phi in any system that matters. Both camps have data. Neither has an answer. The candle in the cave is still burning. No one knows what lights it. If you enjoyed this, consider subscribing for more from the Crazy Alchemist. You can find the full written article with sources and further reading on our website at crazyalchemist.com.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to visit crazyalchemist.com for more intriguing content and follow Crazy Alchemist on Instagram and Facebook to stay connected.